Russia, my act of expressing concern to the chain of command in an official and private channel would have severe personal and professional repercussions. Dad, I'm sitting here today in the U.S. Capitol talking to our elected professionals is proof that you made the right decision 40 years ago to leave the Soviet Union and come here to the United States of America in search of a better life for our family. Do not worry. I will be fine for telling the truth.
I will be fine for telling the truth. I'm joined now by Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and the impeachment manager, Congressman Adam Schiff. He said that under oath in faith of the system. Is your view that that was ultimately proven wrong by these actions? And as reported by the New York Times, do you view this as potentially improper or illegal retaliation?
Ari, it's a heartbreaking day, and I remember that testimony so vividly. I think it's among the most powerful I've heard in 20 years here in the Congress. And it breaks my heart that that is now an open question, whether his father was right to be worried, whether the colonel's assurance to his dad proved to be true or not true. I think it's probably still too early in the story of his life to give a complete answer to that question. But the president's actions in essentially pushing both he and his brother out of their positions at the National Security Council, the actions of the White House to continue to bully and intimidate him, to put his promotion in question, to, if the reporting is accurate, seek dirt on him to try to justify what is really just retaliation for his telling the truth when he was compelled by a congressional subpoena. It certainly looks like a lot of the fears that the colonel's father had about his testimony have become all too realized. But I don't think the story is over for this patriotic American. He's moving on to a different chapter. It's tragic that he should be compelled to retire for these reasons. But he has, I think, earned the admiration of millions and millions of Americans. I think he still has a very bright future in front of him. And there's work that we need to do. I think there should be Inspector General investigation by the Defense Department Inspector General into the circumstances behind this compelled retirement, behind the campaign of bullying that he refers to.
And the colonel, like others before your committee, and we all watched, we covered it, stood up at their risk, whether everyone agreed with their witness testimony or what to do about it. It is a public fact that many of them took a risk, went under oath to tell their eyewitness accounts. Mr. John Bolton didn't. He waited to publish it in a lucrative book. I'm saying that, not you. You could say it how you want, Congressman. But even he, late to the gathering, is co-signing Colonel Vindman. Take a look.
Well, in my experience with him, I think he merited promotion. His performance was exceptional. I'm sure that Congress is going to be very interested over the coming weeks as to exactly what factored into his decision.
What specifically does Congress do now, and going into the election where the American people may or may not factor in any of this, when through the measures at the DOJ, which we've reported on and you've worked on, and these other measures through retaliation, ousting inspectors general, intimidating and retaliating allegedly against these individuals until you get them out of government. What is done to stop that? Because if there is no punishment, isn't the long-term takeaway from other honest people in government, well, stay out of the way. It's too risky to your whole career in life.
Well, that's exactly right. And, first of all, in terms of Mr. Bolton, you put your finger on it exactly. Colonel Vindman worked for John Bolton. So did Dr. Fiona Hill. So did Tim Morrison. They had the courage to do the right thing, to speak out, and not to make money from a lucrative book deal, but because it was the right thing and the necessary thing to do. They displayed a courage and love of country that we did not see from John Bolton, who said that he would sue us if we tried to compel him to testify. And as we know, we're still in court trying to get Don McGahn to testify. So there is a very sharp contrast. I appreciate John Bolton vouching for Colonel Vindman, but there's no vouching for what John Bolton did. In terms of where we go forward, we are working on our own set of post-Watergate reforms to give greater protection to whistleblowers, to give greater protection to people who testify as they're legally obligated to do, to protect inspector generals from firing for any reason other than good cause, and to require when an inspector general is fired that the investigative files be provided to Congress so we can determine whether it is yet another act of obstruction of justice. But we're going to need a whole panoply of reforms when this presidency is over. The last point, if I could, is what makes the punishment of Colonel Vindman possible is not just this amoral president, but it's a GOP in Congress that is not only unwilling to lift a finger or speak a word in his defense, but quite to the contrary, piled on the attacks on Colonel Vindman, this decorated war hero.
Right. And America lived through that. There is a record, there's history, and as you say, with policy and a government process, there may be a reckoning. Congressman Schiff, an important story. I appreciate you making time. I know it's a busy night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.